there is one more technique we want to talk about, and this is the, we're not going to use it in this particular comp down here that we did because this is a pretty good result without using it. However, I'd like to show you guys the technique. Looks like we have a little mat there, just zooming around. All right, let's fix that real quick because I don't want to leave it. All right, there we go. And so yeah, we can do this one advanced technique that I was telling you guys about, and it's sort of breaking the rules of what we learned before, but it does work sometimes, and it works quite well. And I put some notations in case you guys want to learn a little bit more about it. I'm kind of going to explain this anyways, but so what we've been doing before with this whole technique is we do the D-spill on the left, the alpha on the left, we do the D-spill on the right, we copy the alpha together, and we pre-multiply. And these nodes, if you plug a Keylight directly into a footage, it's doing all that together. So it's doing the D-spill, it's creating an alpha, it's copying it together, and it's pre-multiplying. So all of that is happening, you know, in one single node. So something that we can do is like we do our main comp the way that we've learned it. We pre-multiply it, and okay, we're good to go. And maybe this is an example of where it wasn't done. So there was still all the gray, and I hadn't taken care of it yet. But this way is actually faster sometimes than trying to go through and despill each area for whatever reason. So basically, what you can do is if you take a Keylight, and this is after the pre-multiply. So this is a technique that goes after. You key mix Keylights after the pre-mult with different D-spills. And it will do the alpha and the D-spill at the same time. So you got to be careful because if you do it in an area, you might get holes in your alpha. Again, you know, the whole reason we didn't use one keyer in the first place is because sometimes you get holes or problems. But at the same time, for whatever reason, doing it this way seems to give really good D-spill and alphas on some edges sometimes. So I'll just show you this one in particular. So for example, I did a single Keylight here, and I set the alpha bias. Actually, this one I didn't even use the alpha bias, but let's take a look at the... Okay, so usually I use the alpha bias, but screen balance as well. So screen balance or alpha bias, usually I use them in combination. But by just plugging it in, it did a pretty good job of despilling right off the bat. And I didn't really have to, I just basically did a little bit of color balancing and just key mix that over our entire key. And you see, maybe here it's not doing so well, but in a bunch of these areas, it does a really good job blending all the colors. And it's giving a pretty good alpha. There's some gray in the alpha, but if we look at the final result, it has a really good fall off, and we didn't have to actually spend a lot of time getting like the perfect alpha or anything like that. And it's really retaining these colors. It's doing a good job despilling by basically just plugging in a Keylight, and in this particular area, it did a good job. So, and then I just key mix that on top of the key we already made. So it's replacing a lot of the work we did, but sometimes if you're in a pinch or you're working quick, or you're having some problems with specific edges, for whatever reason, I'm going to disable these for a second just to show you. So if we have some weird areas like this, for whatever reason, if you go here and just disable and drag our sample here and just kind of do this, and we push the screen balance, you know, you can see that it's obviously kind of taking too much color out of the wall here. So it's not good for an overall thing. But as a single node that's doing this, it's doing a D-spill and getting a good key, I could just put a key mix here, key mix that result over our entire key. So again, it's after our pre-mult. So we're kind of doing something different than we did before with our D-spills, because again, D-spills are just affecting color. Alpha is just affecting the alpha, but this is affecting both. And that's why we're doing it after the pre-mult, because this is like a combination of all of that. And it's already pre-multiplied, so it's okay to key mix it directly because this is pre-multiplied and this is pre-multiplied. So if I just mix this, if I just draw like a shape here, and then we look at the final result, it does a pretty good job. And it's just a single Keylight. And so areas, different areas, this technique can work pretty well. Sometimes it totally doesn't work, but sometimes it really, really works. So for an example, if we look at like the hair, for example, I was actually doing the same technique for the hair. So I already have like the additive key and all the techniques that we talked about, which is restoring a lot of the hair detail. It's doing a pretty good job. So we can disable the additive key and see. So I did a lot of the techniques we talked about. But instead of using this combined, image, I basically just did a Keylight near this area, and key mix that on top. And for whatever reason, that just gives us a nicer despill and alpha together. So sometimes by not separating this process, this despill and alpha creation process, by keeping it together in one node and key mixing it over, we have the advantage of both systems, which is for the majority of the key, we can control the despill and the alpha separately. But in particular areas where this Keylight technique works, just by keeping it together, by default, it just does a good job. We can mix that at the end of our key after the pre-multiplication. So hopefully that makes sense, and you can see, look at the detail that it brings back. So if I compare over the final, and I disable and I enable, it's kind of just making it slightly brighter, but it's also doing kind of an interesting thing there. So another good example of where these really work is I want to show you the despill bias as well. So I'm going to disable this and do like this area. This is a really good area for this example. So if I select around this red rope thing, and I have the screen balance, but it's not doing that much. I could just push the screen balance really far and kind of fix it that way. But you can also select the alpha bias and click the area that you're trying to key. So I'm trying to key this red rope and get a good despill. It's doing the key and the despill at the same time. So if I click that thing, it's going to shift the alpha slightly, and it's also going to change the despill slightly. You see the alpha is not perfect, so this is, again, where you can run into little problems. But we can always push the clip white over a little bit. And so it's doing a pretty good job despilling it. Obviously, look at the rest of the image is totally pink. So it's doing this crazy color correction. But to the area that we did the alpha bias, it's creating a decent alpha, and it's despilling in that color. So it says use alpha bias for despill. So the color we selected, this red, is also being used for the despill. And if we key mix that over, I'll just show you. And we just go here and we just look at it. That's the result. And then we can look at the final, and let's compare if I disable and I enable. So not working right on the edge, but before the edge, it's doing quite a good job. And it's really pulling out and doing that despill pretty well. So that's just something to consider, that there is another way to build these keys, and this is kind of breaking the rules. And I want to teach you guys the rules before obviously covering this, because otherwise you're not going to understand what we're doing. But these are already pre-multiplied. I know I've re-explained it like a million times, but I really want the people taking this class to understand it, because a lot of times when I have a really tricky key, this is like my last resort, and it really, really works sometimes. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And we can take a look at the final here. So this is the key I did originally. This is the key I did down here. So we can see a slightly different result. It looks like, you know, my Keylight, that advanced technique I just taught you, actually did a better job of retaining a little bit more detail in that semi-transparent area on this part. We're also looking at a different frame, because in these particular examples up here, I only worked on the shot with one frame, so I froze it at frame 31. So I'll just put this here so it's very clear. But yeah, that's just something to keep in mind, that you can do that more advanced technique.